Good morning and welcome to this weekend's edition of News from the Camp House, listening post of the Texas Sportsman Association. This is Herman Brune. This weekend's edition is also brought to us by the Shaw's Bend Social Club, country club for folks who don't have a country club. One of the new aspects of our program is that you can now also find it at thelostRiderPodcast.com. You don't have to get up at 6:30 on Saturday morning. You can go to the Lost, TheLostRider podcast.com and listen to this show and see if there's information that you're looking for about just about any given subject that we talk about every Saturday. Now, we got a special guest this morning, Greg Buenger. I would think most people remember Greg. Greg was a veterinarian. Most of the time in Belleville when I was around you. How you doing, Greg?
I'm doing just great, and retirement hadn't quite hit me yet. I think I'm retired, but I have neighbors up here where I live now, so I guess I'm not retired. I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me.
Oh no, it's great. Okay, now you're a retired veterinarian. You've got, what is your position with Farm Bureau?
Yes, sir. Actually, I'm a state director now with Texas Farm Bureau. I live in North Texas in Young County now, which is close to Graham, south of Wichita Falls, and I'm director for 17 counties up along the Red River for Texas Farm Bureau right now.
Oh, damn. Boy, hell, you're way the hell up there. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, that's different kind of country again, but I mean, that's lots of cow country up there, isn't it?
You better believe it is. It's cow country. It's been a little wetter than normal this year. It's not a heavy rainfall area. A lot of wheat growing, that kind of thing up here. A lot of grazed wheat, a lot of harvested wheat. So we're kind of that kind of farming operation up here.
Okay. All right.
And I'm actually cow calf. I don't do any of that. So my focus is what it was down there. It's cow calf.
Okay. All right. So you're cow calf operation, but they do put cattle on winter wheat up there.
Yes, sir.
Okay, put yearlings and steers and heifers and stuff, and put them on wheat for the winter and then send them to the feedlots. All right. Now, the reason I reached out to Greg for everybody this morning, well, for one, I thought Greg Buenger, there's a familiar name everybody kind of knows about. He's in a good spot. He's got some good information. One of the things that's come up on the radar in the last, this last year or so has been screwworms. And this is something that if you're not my and Greg's age, you may not know a whole lot about this. And people are not really set up to have this kind of an epidemic. I don't know how much everybody's keeping an eye on it, but it's kind of a significant thing to have pop up. Greg, you want to inject something there?
Yeah, this is you're right. Texas and the southern part of the United States. The truth is, we've always had screwworms, except for the last 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there's honestly never been a time in history we probably haven't had screwworms. We had some really bad uproars with it in the 50s and 60s, and then again in the 70s into the 80s. And Herman, that's the one you and I are real familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a bad beast. And so I'm hoping and I'm wishing that people would wake up to this. And I think most people are at least aware. But the screwworm years ago was eradicated by the use of sterile flies. And those of you who are old guys like us, we remember those little paper boxes that were dropped everywhere with the sterile flies. And it's probably a discussion for another show to the details of how that works.
Mm-hmm. But
needless to say, the sterile flies eliminated the screwworms when nothing else would. Which is the same thing that happens this time if we get them. So they were eradicated all the way through Mexico and Central America, all the way down to Panama. And anyway, a couple of years ago, some things went wrong, and the New World screwworm escaped that blockade and got up into Central America. And the first thing you know, they're in Mexico. And even very close to the border, there's been a case as close as 70 miles from the border a couple of weeks ago. So, you know, we need to wake up about this. This is a fly. It's a blowfly. There are lots of blowflies. There are 2 screwworm flies. One feeds on live flesh. The other doesn't. The one that feeds on live flesh is the one we don't want to mess with again, because they literally get in wounds, and sometimes not even in wounds, and they will eat an animal alive. And so the fly is harmless, but it lays eggs around the wound, and those larvae burrow in, and they look like little screws. That's why they have the name screwworm. And they will eat for 7 days and then fall out and pupate and hatch into another fly. And those wounds can continue to get reinfected, generally until somebody does something or until the animal dies.
Right.
So that's kind of the animal we're dealing with.
All right, you said New World screwworms. Is there something different about these than what we had before?
It's just the difference is this is the ones we have on this side of the world. I was in South Africa a little over a month ago. They have Old World screwworms over there. Same bug, same thing. I don't know why there's a difference, but there is apparently.
Right,
they both do the same thing, and they're both horrible. Do
they fight them the same way over there, with sterile flies?
They haven't done that over there. Honestly, South Africa, it's such a dry, hot country that they don't just run rampant over there. They're kind of endemic, and they treat them with topical medications and different things like ivermectin and those sorts of things. And of course, they don't have the same regulations we do, so they can use higher doses of ivermectin and things like that they find effective. But over here, we only have a couple of medications now that are approved for treating screwworms. 2 of them are just topical sprays for treating larvae in a wound. The other one just released was Dectomax, which we already have, but it's a I don't know if it's a new formulation. It has a new name. That one was released last week to treat New World screwworm larvae infections, and then also to prevent it for the life of that drug in the animal, which is about 2 weeks.
All right, let's back up just a little bit and let these try to make an impression on people that, you know, where I saw this before was, you know, when I was 10 years old, so that was 1967, and you had calves, and in the springtime when those cows are having calves and they had a little old bloody navel, that's where the flies would lay their eggs, on a calf's bloody navel. If you didn't catch it that day and treat it and get those, what you had to do was you had to get the larva out of the wound and put them in a test tube, and then you had to treat it. And if you didn't catch it that day, that calf was dead tomorrow. And that's
pretty quickly. You're right.
Yeah, and that was the seriousness of this thing. Now, what that meant was you were in the pasture every day, and you were, you know, especially when you're calving, and you know the cows are having calves, and you know people down here, you know how they leave bulls out all year, so you got the problem all the time. And, you know, now if you pick your bulls up, you know you've got a 90-day window that this is when you're going to have calves, this is when you're most likely to have the problem. But if you leave your bulls out all the time and you just got calves all the time, all through the summer, all through the spring, you know, and you just got to be there every day, and you got to do it every day anyway. I mean, you got to be out there looking for these things and treating them, and that's where people used to have calves tied all over the pasture, and you know, and the old cow had to hang around her calf, you know, because it was a calf tied, and you were going all over the pasture, doctoring calves all everywhere, and that's right,
Herman. And I recall this. I wasn't in practice yet in the 60s and even 70s. In fact, we shoved the screwworm out of the country and way south about the time I got out of vet school. So in practice, I didn't have to deal with them. But it is true, and if that calf didn't die the first day, you might get lucky and still be able to treat it the second day. But here's the thing: any kind of wound. I mean, any kind of fresh live tissue. It doesn't necessarily even have to be bloody. I remember cows that had calves, and the screwworm would lay eggs on her reproductive parts back there.
Yeah.
And they'd have screwworms in their uterus. I mean, in their vagina back there.
Right.
I remember some cases where there were horses. The screwworms laid the geldings. The screwworms laid eggs in the sheath, and there wasn't even a wound there. And
right.
They look for mucous membrane, but preferably they like fresh, live, open tissue. And so they're a booger. One thing I remember of course, I lived in industry, and my granddads in industry in Blyberville, they did exactly what you said. We looked for calves every day, and so what my dad and us did in our herd is we pull bulls and we calve from December 15th to the end of February.
Right.
And of course, in the wintertime, they're not a problem. They don't like it much below 60 degrees. And when you get down into the 30s and 40s, even not freezing, they pretty well stop. So you have to plan accordingly. But baby calves, of course, castration, dehorning, ear tagging, even branding, anything that caused any kind of flesh exposure, right. It was awful. And one thing I remember in our area, of course, you have livestock, but you also have wildlife.
Yes. And
there were quite a few deer in my area before screwworms in the 50s, before they really got that big burst of infestation in that area in those next 10 years. The deer population was eliminated.
Yeah.
There was virtually no fawns that survived.
Right. Right.
And that's horrible. And I think people don't understand if they haven't seen it before. You're right. People need to be aware that we don't want this to become a problem.
Right. Right. I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break and thank the folks who let us come on here every Saturday morning. And we'll be right back.